Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today on the bench we have got a new radio from a company called BinTolk, and this time it is the BT-8200. And I don't know about you, but BinTolk isn't a name that I've come across until more recent times. Certainly now it seems to be almost everywhere. I keep seeing it online at various different retailers. But this one comes to us courtesy of Banggood.com, so thank you very much guys for sending this one over. So as you can see, it's an attractive little radio, and I'm going to call it a dual bander, but actually maybe that does it a bit of a disservice because it does cover a wide range of frequencies. And this looks oh so familiar in some respects, as I'll explain in a second, but the frequency coverage actually starts at 18 megahertz and goes all the way up to 520. Now I'm not suggesting it can transmit all the way through there, but it has a wideband receiver inside it, which indicates it's of a similar chipset to the other radios we've seen recently from Radtel and Quansheng. The key thing is the 18 megahertz limit on the frequency range. But that said, it is essentially a dual band radio that's capable of transmitting between 136 and 174 megahertz, and also up into the UHF portion of 70 sems, so let's say from something like 400 to 470 megahertz. But yet when I check out the specifications, it actually suggests that this radio can transmit all the way through from 18 megahertz right the way up to 520 out of the box. Now I'm not suggesting for a minute you do such a thing, because as we've seen with previous models like these, they might be able to transmit all the way across those frequency ranges, but you shouldn't do it because the harmonics are quite bad on them, because essentially they've been designed for amateur radio bands. So the only bands you should really be transmitting in properly, I would say, are the normal VHF, UHF ranges for 2 meters and 70 sems, where these get acceptable harmonic range tests, and probably some of the PMR frequencies as well. But we'll be checking that out a little bit later on in the video when we test the power output of the radio as well. So anyway, this is looking familiar to me. I bought a radio last year that I've not done a review on. I bought something called a Radtel RT-900, and I'd just like to introduce it into the picture because look at this. Now, doesn't the BinTolk BT-8200 bear a astounding resemblance, I would say, to the Radtel RT-900? And having done a bit of research, it is actually the same radio. Electronically inside it is. Cosmetically, there's a few changes to the front panel. I think, if anything, the BinTolk version looks nicer. It's got that nice metal finish on it, a bit like some of the Quanshengs. It's just got a rather nice, attractive faceplate on this one. But this radio is the same. This one's a little bit more bland, but they both do the same frequency coverage. You can see on the display the menu system looks the same. The firmware in these two radios is almost the same, but I can see that the keypad is better backlit on this one. You see the backlit keypad on here, and the one on the Radtel's also lit, but this one just looks brighter. So there are some changes inside the radio, mainly due to the cosmetics, but if we turn them around to the side, you can see there both of these two radios have the same PTT, programmable side keys, and on top of the radio, look at that, identical. Isn't that more than a coincidence? Well, the coincidence is that they'll actually program with the same CPS software as well. I mean, BinTolk does have its own website, so it is totally separate from Radtel. And I've actually seen some of these radios under some other brand names too. But one thing's for sure, that they all collaborate together, and perhaps they're all made at the same factory. In fact, I'm almost certain that Radtel and BinTolk come out of the same factory and are more or less the same firmware. But we'll get onto that in a minute when we look at the menu system. But as you can see, they all work in exactly the same way. So if you can program a Radtel RT-900, and I've had this radio for about a year now, it's going to work with this. And I proved it because I actually exported my CPS on this one and put it into the BinTolk, and it worked first time without any glitches or anything. So there might be some subtle differences between the two, but essentially they are the same radio. So let's move on to the basics. Well, this radio, as I say, has a wide frequency coverage. It does have a proper rotary volume control on top here, which is very nice for stepping the volume, and there you go.
Right.
That's one of the local nodes. I'm just listening to MB7IWW coming in there. So as you can see there, it's receiving in the studio. You also have a rotary VFO, which will please some people because not everybody likes using the up and down keys. You can change through frequency and channel and everything and menu through that, but equally you can use this rotary VFO to change channel and you can assign the usual things like the steps and everything to it in VFO mode or memory channels. And as you can see there, it just goes all the way through very nicely. And speaking of memories, this radio has 256 memories available, so it's not a massive amount of memory, but it's good enough for what it is. It doesn't contain 1,000 like some radios that we've seen recently, but again, it doesn't really cover HF. I know it goes down to 18 megs, but it only does AM and FM mode reception. But it is good for listening into a few bits and pieces, maybe the CB frequencies and things like that as well. And one interesting thing that is documented about this radio is it can be extended to receive up to 1,000 megahertz in something called Supermode. Now, Supermode sounds really exciting, but what you do is you basically hold down the PTT key, and I think there's another key, hold down key 8 it is, and then turn the radio on, and it extends the frequency coverage and removes any transmit restrictions on the radio. So it goes all the way from 18 megahertz up to 1,000 in Supermode. So if you get a radio from somewhere that's been locked down to just the amateur radio band, you can get it to go out of band and extend its receive all the way up to 1,000 megahertz as well. And some people say it actually transmits up there as well, but I certainly wouldn't want to be transmitting out of band. It won't have the filtering in it to be able to transmit properly, and the output power is going to be really, really low up that side of the band. But that said, you might have uses for it up to 1,000 megs. You might listen into things like wireless microphones, depending on which country you're in as well. There are services that are up on the higher range of the frequencies. Here in the UK, there isn't really much worth listening to above 500 megs. Most services will be digital or other things like 5G and everything further up. So there's very little to listen to up there. Maybe the odd wireless radio mic and things like that. But yeah. Anyway, in the hand, the radio feels really nice. It's only a compact little unit. The keypad is well backlit on this one. I really like that. You've got up and down keys here as well for stepping up and down through frequencies or the VFO. The menu system is exactly the same as the Radtel RT-900, which isn't any surprise. You can actually switch between memory mode and VFO really, really easily by just holding down the OK key here. And as you can see there, we're back into VFO mode. Hold it down again, and we're into memory mode. And one thing I did like on this display, you can see the display is quite high resolution, it's quite crisp. The active VFO is the one at the top there, which has got that blue bar on it. If we press the exit button, it toggles between upper and lower VFO, so you've got dual watch available. You can toggle between the two really easily. And I like this because it's got the big memory on here, well, not the big memory, the big letters for the memory channel names and everything. You can switch this in the menu between frequency, channel or name mode. But underneath there you can see that it's got the name of the channel, which is Marine 1, MAR01, and underneath that you've got the frequency in smaller digits. So although it's quite small to see, it does have both on there. And likewise, if you put it into frequency reading mode instead for the memory, you get the name of the channel underneath in small characters as well. So I think that's quite a nice touch, really, what they've done with that in the firmware. It does look quite nice. You noticed there was a little light on top of this radio as well, which comes on when you transmit or you receive something as well. So it's TX and RX LED like most of these radios. And some of you will be disappointed to know there is no flashlight on this unit. But I've actually used the space for something useful for a change, having a rotary VFO control, which is really nice. So it's a little bit chunky, this radio. It is good. I do like it. It's got quite a big battery pack on there as well. I think it's possibly 2,500 milliamp on the battery. I don't know till I take it off. I believe it's 2,500. I'll correct myself later if I'm wrong. But it does last a fair old time as well. And it is USB-C rechargeable. And as you can see there, possibly on the back of the unit, you can actually charge it. You have to charge it lying down though, because the USB-C port is on the underside of the battery. So if you're going to charge it up, you're going to need to plug it straight into there as well. And also you can drop it into a desktop charger. So that brings me on nicely to this box over here. That's the little box you get. Nothing fancy with this radio, just a plain cardboard box. There's the BinTolk logo. Interesting name, don't you think? BinTolk. I thought it was BinTalk, but it's T-O-L-K. And this is the Bluetooth version that was sent through to me. Don't get a lot in the box. You don't get a programming cable or anything, but it is a standard Baofeng K-type cable. So if you want to program it, you can just pop open the side here. And it's just the standard cable you would use for programming Quansheng, Baofeng, etc. So no big deals there anyway. You don't get anything special in the box. You get a belt clip, which I haven't attached to the unit yet. Plastic belt clip. It is done using screws though, so that's okay, I suppose. Really, it's not going to be the strongest. A little power adapter, little USB one there. This is a 2-pin Euro one, but you should get the appropriate one for your region. Don't really use it. I just use the mobile phone charge cables and stuff like that generally. And there you go, there's a USB-C cable in the box for charging the radio as well. So that is it. And you also get a user guide, obviously the antenna and the radio. There is a basic user guide here as well, with everything you need in here about operating the radio on the bands and the menu system as well. So let's take a closer look at the menu system on the BT-8200. As you can see, it looks quite familiar to anybody who's used Radtel based radios in the past. The menu system is well laid out, easy to navigate around, and contains all the usual refinements such as channel stepping, CTCSS, Vox, wide and narrow modulation, auto backlighting, and a whole load of other stuff. Nothing special particularly about this. It's the same sort of stuff that you find in most of these type of radios. And as you can see there, you can fully program the memories from the front panel of the radio without too much bother. You don't need a PC to do it, although the easiest way to do it is using the Bluetooth application on your mobile device, which I'll show you in a few minutes. But this is kind of interesting, going through some of these options until we get up to here where the language settings are. Now, as you can see on this model, it's got Russian in there as the secondary language. So you've got a choice of English or Russian, English being the primary language, but you can tell which market this radio was aimed at. And I think that's the reason why they do these different brand names. The Radtel based version, if we just bring this back into the picture over here, this one, as you can see, is actually Chinese language as the second option. So Chinese on the Radtel and Russian on the BinTolk. And I believe that these radios are obviously sold in different markets globally, so that's why they produce them slightly differently. And they have ever so slightly different firmware on them for the language type and them kind of options as well. So I was very surprised to see Russian in there as the secondary language, but as you can see, they must sell an awful lot of radios in that region. Moving on anyway, all the usual things for scanning, and this is quite good. The programmable side keys, PF2 and PF3 I think it is, you can set these to do whatever you like, and it's quite comprehensive. There's short key press and long key press options available as well. So what I've done with mine is, if we take this example down here, the orange key, I've repurposed this to change the power level on the radio. So you can see there it says M above the display there on the bottom VFO. Press it again, it goes high, and then back down to L for low power. So low, medium and high power by just pushing the orange button on whatever channel or frequency I want to use, which I thought was quite good. And the second key I've used down here for creating a scan function. So if I just push the scan button now, you can see it starts scanning, and that's the scan rate of the radio as well, by the way. It does seem to scan reasonably fast. It's not the fastest in the world, but it does the trick, and at least it shows the names of the channels that are programmed in there. Whereas some radios I've used in the past don't show anything when they're scanning. At least this one actually does show everything that's going on the display. So that's quite good. So as you can see, you can actually program in all these things, and just with one single touch you can just push that button and off you go to scan, and also change the power level as well. So all that's customizable from the front of here on the panel. You can program repeater offsets, shift directions, and all the other stuff as well. And you can also change between a logo or voltage on boot up as well, which is kind of handy. There is a scrambler in these as well, DTMF, all the usual refinements, tone burst for those repeaters that still use them, and all kinds of other bits and pieces. Even the menu exit time can be customized. And as you can see, there is a lot of options inside this menu. You can change the way it shows the name or the frequency on the VFO in memory mode, and you can also turn on and off dual watch obviously, and those kind of things too. So there's your scrambler. Noise reduction is an interesting one. I'll show this in a demo later on in the SDR. You can actually turn on noise reduction in this to reduce background noise coming down the microphone when you're talking to somebody, so that's kind of handy. I want to see how effective that actually is, so I'm going to do a quick test on it through the SDR in the video when we go out and do the field test. But certainly seems quite an interesting option, and one that maybe of use to some people who are using these maybe on bikes like motorcycles and stuff like that. Bluetooth on and off. Obviously you need the Bluetooth turning on if you want to be able to program the radio, which I'll show you in a few minutes too. And you can reset the VFO. And there's the firmware versions on my radio, which obviously these are going to be different depending on where you buy yours from. And if any new firmware does become available, I will leave a link in the description below the video so you can go to the site. You can download the firmware and frequency programming software for this radio on BinTolk's website, which isn't immediately obvious, but I will leave a link in the description to do that for you as well. Antenna wise, it's a standard connector on this one. It's SMA female antenna you want to purchase if you want to upgrade the antenna system. Pretty much standard stuff, so any antennas you've got kicking around, as long as they match the frequency, these will be quite good. And this radio claims to do up to 10 watts output, so I'm going to test that in a few minutes as well. Now, one thing I nearly forgot to mention is the fact that this radio can demodulate the AM mode, and of course it does that automatically within the civil aviation band. But what if you wanted to listen to AM military aircraft? As after all, this radio does cover those frequencies as well. You can switch between AM and FM modulation. Obviously the radio only transmits in the FM mode, but you can switch it to AM on a given frequency, which is kind of interesting. So you can see there I've got a 2 meter band frequency programmed in the radio, and I can switch between AM and FM on this one quite easily. And the reason I nearly forgot is that if I click on the menu and go back to the firmware version where it says 49 in the corner, I thought that was the last of the options. You carry on going and it's as though they squeezed one in at the end there. RX modulation 50, menu option 50. So if we click it, go down, click on AM, and as you can see now the AM mode is showing on the display up there, and that means we're now receiving. So we can't transmit. If we try and key up now on that frequency, nothing happens at all. It's just in receive mode only. But that's very handy if you want to put in some military airband frequencies and want to actually listen into the action. So that's a really nice feature. A lot of radios don't have that option available. They might cover the frequency range, but they don't let you switch between AM and FM. So it's as though they squeeze this one in at last minute and put it on option number 50. So it's worth checking on your radio. It should be up there, and you can switch between the two modes very, very easily. And so that gets a plus point in my book anyway, certainly from the point of being an interesting radio to use for scanning around the military airband, assuming the reception quality is okay. But you know, from what I've heard, the AM airband seems to be okay on these radios, so that's a pretty cool little function really. Okay, just a brief demo of how this super mode actually works on this to expand the coverage of the radio. So if it's in factory mode like this one is at the moment, the coverage stops at 520 megahertz. If we actually wrap that around, it goes back down to 400 then. So that is the limits of the coverage. You can see there it stops at 520. If we want to receive above 520, we need to put the radio into what they call super mode. So what we're going to do is we'll turn the radio off, and we basically hold down the PTT button on the side of the radio, which is fairly straightforward to do, and then press key 8, I believe it is, at the same time as we turn the radio on. And there you go, super mode's appeared on the display now, and as you can see there, it just reboots again, and sure enough we should be able to go above 520 megahertz now. So let's just tap into there. Yep, and we can now expand the band coverage up there. So I don't know where it actually goes up to. There's a bit of a gap in the coverage, I believe. It jumps back down. If it can't do it, it jumped back down to 550. So if I went up to 750 megahertz now, nope, didn't like that. Let's go up to 800. Ah, there you go. So as you can see, there's a bit of a gap in the coverage there with the super mode, but then you're all the way up to 1000 megahertz. So it goes 800 upwards. So if we try putting in, say, 950 megahertz, there you go. So kind of interesting really, but it expands the frequency coverage beyond what it would normally do, and we can go all the way back down to 18 megahertz as well. So although you can't receive sideband on these, you can only receive AM and FM. You could receive the CB frequencies and maybe some AM broadcast stations right down here on the band. But it's kind of interesting how you can just unlock it using those commands. And if you want to put it back to factory, it's PTT button and the exit key, and that turns off Supermode and puts it back to standard. Well, now it's time to take a look at the power levels put out by the BinTolk BT-8200, and I'm going to do it a bit differently this time because I've created a table and I'm going to show you the results across the board, since this radio covers a wide range of frequencies. But I think it's fair to point out that this really is a dual band radio. But anyway, here's the results. As you can see, I've measured it using the Shawcom SW33 Plus SWR and power meter, which really is designed for the 2 amateur radio bands, so there could be a little bit of inaccuracy in some of the measurements here. However, it gives us a picture overall of how much power the radio is putting out. And the thing that you can see immediately obvious here is that across the low, mid and high power levels, you can see that the radio was designed literally for the 2 meter and 70 centimeter amateur radio bands. It does put out RF on some of the other frequencies, but the harmonics would be really bad. If you put this radio on a spectrum analyzer, it's only going to be good and acceptable for the 2 and 70 centimeter band, so I'd suggest not using it outside of that range, even if it can transmit in the 6 meter amateur band and the 11 meter band. But as you can see there, there's a lot of difference in the power levels, right down to 18 megahertz. And remember, this was tested into a dummy load, so we didn't emit any RF on the bands. You can actually see there that it did put out very little power, like 0.1 watts. And also, as we climbed up towards the 52 megahertz band, it didn't really improve that much, to be honest. And the most we got out of it up there on 6 meters was about 1.82 watts. Now, moving upwards, it starts to pick up when you get to 136 megahertz, where we can definitely see an increase in the power, where it starts to ramp up at 3.25 on the mid and 5.65 watts total output power on high. And then as we climb towards the 2 meter amateur radio band, you can see there that it's really designed to be used up that section, because we're seeing the maximum amount of power. So it doesn't quite make the 10 watts that they claim, but we've got 7.44 watts. And on mid power 3.94 watts. So that's pretty respectable, and for a lot of people they'll just use the radio on the mid power, as it's the best compromise between battery life and performance. Even on the low power setting, you can still see there you've got 1.41 watts. And as we climb up again, you can see that the power sort of takes a bit of a dip and then comes back up into the 70 centimeter band. So if we look at the 220 megahertz frequencies, the most it develops is around 3 watts there. Strangely enough, it was higher on the mid power setting than it was on the high, but that's quite often the case with some of these radios. I've had some similar to this before, where they develop a similar amount of power on that band, which is pretty weird stuff going on. Then at 70 sems or 430 megahertz, you can see we start off with 2 watts, climbing to 4.81 watts on mid, and finally up to 7.8 watts there on 70 centimeter band. And as you can see again at 550 megahertz, it does tail off dramatically, where the power level was so low that we just really couldn't measure it on low and mid power. And once we got up to high, we were only seeing about 0.05 watts as well. So into the milliwatts, I would say. And as you climb the band even further, I can't really give you an accurate reading because the meter won't go any higher than that. But needless to say, it wasn't really performing. And as we got higher and higher up in the band, it wouldn't even drive the meter. So there was no RF being detected. So we can pretty much assume that if there is any power going out at 800, 900 megahertz, it is extremely low, as into milliwatts, if that really. But as you can see, it does work right the way across the band. It does transmit, but clearly it's for 2 meters and the 70 centimeter amateur radio band. So that's why you need to be using this thing really. Right, let's talk about programming this radio using the Bluetooth feature. So the BinTolk BT-8200 has a built-in Bluetooth module. It's only for programming the radio. You can't use this for streaming audio or connecting headsets or hands-free, etc. It's just literally for the app programming side. But it is a welcome convenience that is a little bit quicker than programming it all from the front panel. So of course you want to turn on the Bluetooth feature first of all in this one. So just go to Bluetooth, option number, I think it's 47 on the menu, yeah. Tap that, switch it to on, come out of there, and you'll notice at the top of the screen in the very top corner where the green battery bar is, you you can see there's a little Bluetooth symbol. So the app that you're going to need is called Walkie Talkie Tool. Now there's a couple of other apps that are available that do the same thing, but this is the newest and best version, I'm advised anyway. They've depreciated some of the older apps. This is the latest one, Walkie Talkie Tool. So you can find this in the Google Play Store and also the Apple App Store. So you can download that free of charge, and it's available for a number of different radios that Radtel are involved with anyway. So it seems to work with a few different radios. So this is the app. I'll just put it up on the screen for you there. Walkie Talkie Tool. Looks like it's got a lot more stuff going on in it. There are some social media features inside it as well by the looks of things. There's people asking questions and various other stuff going on there. So it looks like it's developing into like a platform, like an ecosystem for all sorts going on with these radios. So anyway, the one we're interested in is the programming one. So on the bottom row next to the plus on the right hand side, just click on that and you can see there's a connect Bluetooth button, select model, frequency read, write and set, and identify the model. So if you're not sure, you can click on that button down there, but we know what it is. So I'm going to tap on select model. And we can see in there, look, you see quite a number of different radios listed, including Baofeng and Radiolity and Badgerton and a whole load of other stuff in there. So it makes me think this is going to be like a unified app, a bit like a CHIRP programmer, but for Bluetooth, if that makes sense. So I'm going to tap onto BinTalk, and we should find our radio in the list here, the BT-8200. So we'll tap that one. It says loading, and we're going to try clicking connect on Bluetooth. And sure enough, it's found the radio straight away. It's got like a MAC address for the Bluetooth adapter, so we'll just click on that. So it's now showing it's connected. You just have to tap the Bluetooth button to disconnect again. So we'll go frequency read, write and set. So click on that. It says loading. And do we have to click on read now? I believe we do. So let's hit read. And hopefully, as you can see in a second, there we go. It's reading quite fast actually. Boom. So you saw the radio screen change like it was connected to a data cable, but in this case it was very, very quick over the Bluetooth. Very good connection actually. And as you can see there, the layout in this is pretty self-explanatory. You can go for each and every channel one at a time, all the way through to 256 channels. And let's just edit, say, channel 20, which I know is S8, one of my local frequencies, 145.200. You can add things like the CT/CSS tones for receive and transmit. You can change anything you like inside there to do with the channel. Power levels, low, mid, high, wide, narrow modulation. So anything you can think of doing normally on the front panel of the radio, you can do with this app as well. So that is really good. So it's going to be a bit of a time saver, this is. You can also pull in repeater data from something like Repeater Book, I think, where it populates the channel for you if you wanted it to program repeaters in your local area. Frequency mode basically allows you to set all the parameters on the radio when it's in VFO mode, like for example the kilohertz step for the channel step, wide and narrow bandwidth, power level again, things like the repeater offsets, things like you know, all the way through to scrambling. And then finally the optional features. Again, these are all the options inside the radio to do with things like switching the Roger beep on and off, alarm sounds, all the important stuff like that in there as well. Power on display logo or voltage, defining the side keys as well. So, you know, you might find it easier to go through this on the app than you do through the front panel on the menu system. You've got everything at your fingertips inside here. So it makes it really easy to do, and you can actually save what you've changed as well. So you could save a profile so that if you do want to experiment, you can make changes, save it, and then recall it afterwards. Or if you've got a number of different radios, you might want to keep a copy of the data file from one radio and clone it to the next one, in which case this app would also be ideal for doing that. So if I just hit save on there, you can then give it a profile name. So we'll just call it BT-8200 test. And once we've done that, that's saved into the phone, and we can then recall that anytime we want. So if we mess up the programming, we can always go back to this app and then program the radio again from there. So as you can see, it's not a bad little app really. It's basic, it's functional, but it does the trick. So I just wanted to show you guys how this works, and that's just the very basics on it. It does a lot more than just that, but to get started, just download the app and make that connection. It's really, really straightforward. Right, so we've got the BinTolk BT-8200 here. We're going to give a shout out to some of the local amateurs and some further away, see if they can hear me on this. Going to go for the full power level. Quite a nice looking radio. Hopefully the weather holds up for a few minutes while we do this. Right, let's go for it. M0 DPH G7 UFS. Hopefully you've got me there, Paul. Go ahead.
0 DPH, yep. A little bit of wind noise in the background. Nothing detrimental. Good strong signal and lovely crisp audio.
Ah, excellent, Paul. Yeah, likewise this way. Yeah, it's just beginning to rain a little bit, so hopefully we can get this done in time. Just parked up in that lay-by again where we were before, just doing this test, and the car just going past like crazy. Yeah, it sounds good this side anyway, Paul. Signal strength okay to you, is it? How's it sounding?
Yeah, you're right over 20 over. Can't get any further, not unless I cut all the top of my radio so it can go a bit further. But I don't want to do that. Yeah, no, it's a good strong signal, mate. I can't fault it at all.
Yeah, the audio's okay from this side as well, coming back on the built-in speaker. Yeah, it's not bad at all. This is that BT-8200, little programmable radio with Bluetooth. Not Bluetooth audio this one though, just Bluetooth for programming, which is quite good. But yeah, it's a bit windy up here again. I forgot my windshield for my mic as well, so that's no good. So I'm stood away from the window, hopefully trying to shield it a little bit. But yeah, so who's on frequency still, Paul? Have we got somebody else on here as well?
Yes, we have. We've got G1 IBF, he's over at Nafferton, and we've got 0 TLT, I think we have, over in north side of Hull, and we've also got Peter on here as well, hybrid.
Right, okay, Paul. Okay, we'll give Peter a shout first then, since he's over in Bridlington, then we'll try Andy. Don't know if we'll get him liking that, but it's a big ask for a handheld really, but we'll try. M1 DBB G7 UFS, have you got me, Peter?
Yeah, 4 scale, just like a normal mobile radio. Audio's perfect. They're no problem at all.
Okay, thanks Peter, that's great, yeah, much appreciated. Yeah, I'm just trying out this little Chinese radio called a BinTolk BT-8200. Very strange name, but seems to work okay. It's the same radio as a Radtel RT-900, so it's basically the same radio, just under a different brand name, Peter. But yeah, you're coming in crystal clear. I take you got your new antenna up then, did you, by the sounds of things? I was listening to your conversation earlier, and you got that 510 up now, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a Rog on that. It's not in its function. I'm going to get another pole, but it's above the ridge of the house, let's put it that way.
Okay, well, it's going to be doing better than the previous one anyway. You're cracking out. Superb signal up here, full scale signal anyway, no bother at all. Right, well thank you for the radio report. What about Andy over in Hull? I don't know if Andy will get me on this one, but we'll try. That's a good sort of 25 miles plus, isn't it, up that direction, so we'll give it a try. Andy, if it's M0 TTL, I think it's G7 UFS, giving you a try there. Back to you. Don't think he's got me.
Are you hearing Simon, Andy? M0 TTL?
Yeah, M0 TTL returning there. No, unfortunately not. It's breaking through. I can tell there's somebody there, but it's unreadable.
We'll turn around a bit and see if we can get another signal.
Welsh, but unreadable, unfortunately, sad to say. But yeah, I can tell there's somebody there, but it's just not strong enough.
Let's give it a try now, Andy. Can you hear me now? I've just turned around a little bit, just re-angled the antenna a bit. Come back to me, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go ahead.
Yeah, I got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go ahead. I could hear that, just about heard you that time. But yeah, very, very scratchy and just on the fringe of being readable there, go ahead.
Well, that's not bad for a handheld, over 25 miles there really, so that's working quite well. Can you just relay that, Paul?
Yep, that's working off a handheld, 25 miles away roughly you are, Andy, from where he is. He's just on a handheld, so, and he's only doing 5 watts, so he's not doing bad at all if you're just reading him.
Yeah, that's, I mean, really, you shouldn't really be able to hear him at all, really, but yeah, it's just about readable on that last one, so, yeah, he's doing well, he's doing really well.
Good. Right, you want to try me, Dad, Simon?
Yeah, we can try your dad. G1 IBF, G7 UFS. Have you got me?
Yeah, Simon, I can't understand what you're saying. You're a signal strength of 1, but far too scratchy, too much noise on your signal. It squelch actually, Simon. So I just can't understand what you're saying. I can hear your voice, but I can't understand what you're saying. From G1IBS.
Okay, G1IBF, I've just turned the antenna around a little bit more towards your direction. You're about 10 or 11 miles from here as well, so you're not doing too bad if you can hear me, just about. But yeah, that's all right then. Right, Paul, I think that concludes the test, really. I think it's getting out quite well, surprisingly, for a handheld. You can't really knock it, can you?
No, you can't go wrong with that at all, Simon. Like I say, my dad can just hear you. And Andy was just getting you as well, so he's a little bit down in the dip, his G1IBF. In Nafferton there, but it's certainly getting out well for a little handheld, mate. A little, I dare say they're not a lot of money then.
Yeah, about £25, Paul, about 25 quid. And they do push about, well, I've done the tests on this one, about 7 or 8 watts on full power, so it's quite a good punch really for the price. But yeah, good little radio for the money. You'll see it on the review anyway, and it's quite well made as well. You'll like it, I think, but so many radios to choose from these days. Anyway, thanks for the reports, guys. I'll leave it there for now and we'll stop the video anyway. So yeah, cheers. Thank you very much.
No boys, 7 days for now. Just give us a call when you get back in your car, say.
Well, there you go. Yeah, BinTolk BT-8200. Pretty good.
That's not a bad little handheld, that.
He likes it anyway, that's the main thing. But yeah, it's all good.
This is G7UFS testing the BinTolk BT-8200. This is an audio test 54321. 12345, audio test from the BinTolk BT-8200, audio 12345, G7UFS. This is Golf 7 Uniform Foxtrot Sierra testing the BinTolk BT-8200's noise reduction capabilities. We're going to try introducing some white noise into the background to see if it mixes with the audio, and then we're going to turn on the noise reduction circuit in a second. So first of all, this is it turned off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. White noise in the background. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We've got lots of noise going on there. So that's G7 UFS testing, and we're back in a second with the noise reduction circuit turned on. This is G7 UFS testing the BinTolk with the noise reduction circuit turned on. We're going to introduce the white noise again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. G7 UFS testing the noise reduction capabilities of the BinTolk BT-8200. And there you go, that's the noise reduction circuit turned on, G7 UFS.
Well, as promised, here's a little bit of a guide on how you can get the BinTolk BT-8200 to work with CHIRP. Officially, this radio is not yet supported, but we can do something in what they call developer mode, where we can install a beta driver. So the first thing you need to do is head on over to Google and type into the search Radtel RT-900 CHIRP. And it should be the first link in the list, and as you can see there, it takes you off to a community page on CHIRP's website. So if you just click on that, this is where the development of this new driver is going on. Now this has been happening for the last 10 months. I believe it's almost there, but it hasn't quite been done yet. So the file you want is based on something called a KSUN UV110D, which I assume is yet another version of this radio. And as you can see there's a file down here, KDH UV110D bt.py. That is the beta test driver that was released at the back end of last year, and that's the one that we want. So download that. I've already got a copy of this, so I'm going to head on back over to CHIRP. So first things first, you need to put CHIRP into development mode. So click on the help column, click on developer mode, and you must accept this warning here that it says you must use it with extreme care, because you can brick radios if you know, you're not careful with what you're loading into these custom modules. So let's just say yes to that message, and it says you've got to restart CHIRP. So we'll just close it down and do what it says, just give it a restart. When I spell the name right, there we go, and it's coming back up. And sure enough, now we should see load module, which is where you can install the development modules. So if you go to file, load module, and then again you have to accept the warning that you trust the module that you're loading. So just say yes to it. And hopefully my download section, I've got some CHIRP modules already in a folder, and there it is, the KDH UV110D-BT. So we're going to load that one in, open that, and now we're going to try reading from the radio. So my radio is already connected up in the normal way with normal COM port cable. Click on radio download, Just make sure your COM port is set correctly. Vendor is Radtel, and we must select the RT-900 BT, and I'm going to click OK. And it looks like it's beginning to read, so that'll take a minute or two to pull down the memories, then we can just check and verify that it's all working okay. Well, it looks like it's brought in all the frequencies successfully. We can see the name, and if we scroll down here, yeah, we can see the CTCSSs for these repeaters and the offsets. So it looks like it's brought in all the information. So that is a quick way of editing the config of your BT-8200. And as you can see there, scrolling down, we've got even more frequencies in. Yeah, go to settings. We can see the radio settings there. So they've all been brought across too, which is very, very useful. So this could be a real time saver if you're wanting to import some, channels that you've created in another radio recently and don't want to have to use the custom BT-8200 CPS software. So it will save you a little bit of time importing those in. The only slight anomaly I have noticed going through this afterwards was the fact that these AM airband channels are actually coming up as FM here in the mode. So this could potentially be an issue because obviously you can't revert them back to AM. And if we re-upload this config file, it might change these frequencies back to the FM mode. So just something to keep an eye on there. With this being a beta driver, you can expect a few bugs in it like this or anomalies because it wasn't specifically made for this particular model of radio either. Now it could be that there are some fixes on this. There's a big lengthy discussion on this page. If we could just go back down here, there's all sorts going on inside here to do with this driver, and there is some mentions about the AM. I did try one of the more recent drivers on here. In fact, there's one dated 2025 for the RT-900 as a unified driver, but I did try that and it just kept on giving me an error when I tried to read it at the COM port level. So just something to keep an eye on. It may well get fixed, and this is probably one of the reasons why this driver isn't a production release just yet anyway, so worth keeping an eye on. But that said, it does save you some time if you wish to import some of your existing configs from other radios straight into this. It will save you some time, but hopefully that's of use to you guys anyway. So that's it, the BinTolk BT-8200 dual bander. I'm going to call it a dual bander because really it's designed to be used just within those sets of frequencies. The fact that this thing receives outside of those band limits is a bonus, I would say. It's really useful if you're into listening to airband or military air and things further up the band as well. Kind of useful having the wide frequency coverage, but I certainly wouldn't want to be transmitting on it outside of the 2 and 70 centimeter amateur radio bands. What you got to remember is this is a relatively cheap radio, but it is well finished. I think the screen quality is really good on this. It certainly looks more expensive than what you are going to pay for this radio. And at the moment, Banggood have got some promotions on, so do go check the links in the description below and see what the latest offer is. It's an incredible piece of kit for the money, I would say, and as long as you approach it with the mindset that this radio is ideal for 2 and 70, then you won't go too far wrong. I certainly wouldn't want to be transmitting outside of those band ranges, not on the 6 meter band, not on the 11 meter band, even though it could potentially do that at reduced power, as you've seen in the table that I showed earlier on, because simply you're going to get harmonics. The filtering can't be good all the way across this massive range of frequencies that it covers. So you've really got to think about where you're going to use the radio, and responsibly, I would say 2 and 70 is probably your best bet, and maybe 136 up to 174 perhaps, on the lower sort of VHF side of things as well is probably about as low as you'd want to go with satisfactory harmonic suppression. So there you have it. I reckon the radio is worth the money. Certainly I enjoy using this one. I've been using it a fair bit out and about. The only thing I didn't like was I found that the audio became a bit distorted if I talked a bit close to the microphone. I had to back off a little bit. It seems quite sensitive. Maybe it's just the way I'm using the radio, but it did seem a little bit distorted when I was driving it close up. So just one thing to bear in mind is just back off the microphone, which is built into the front panel here when you're talking. Maybe just give it a little bit more distance. And that's the only thing I would say negative about the radio, really. The audio quality on the receive wasn't too bad. The AM seemed to function okay as well on the aircraft side of things, which is always a plus point because I have tried many Chinese radios where the airband hasn't really been sufficient, but on this one it didn't seem that bad really, so that's a plus point. I would like to see some more memories 256 isn't a great deal, and there is no bank management either. So basically you have to scan all or nothing just by adding or removing things from your scan list. You can't create memory banks like you can on some of the more advanced transceivers. So that's the only downside to it, really. But for the money, I really am nitpicking. This radio is great for the price. When you think what you're getting in the package, it's a great radio. And by the way, the battery is 2,200 milliampere hours. I didn't know that earlier on. It didn't say on the backpack of the battery. I took the one off the Radtel RT-900 and it's the same battery pack, and it says, or it claims to be 2,200 milliamps, so that's just kind of interesting. But anyway guys, I will leave some links in the description below this video as always if you're interested in purchasing your own BinTolk BT-8200. If you did like the video and found it helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll be back soon with some new videos too. Lots of new kit coming up as well, so all sorts of stuff still to come this year. There's been so many new radios released in 2025, it's crazy, isn't it really? But anyway, thanks for bearing with me, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.